The ships used to get covered in oil, the hoses would break, there was oil squirting everywhere, you know. Or we'd transfer people from one ship to another and suddenly they'd dip down and get drenched in the sea and pushed up again.
Another thing, important thing I was supposed to mention is the mail. There was destroyers used to come alongside the ship with regular monotony, and it was quite a routine thing. At first it was something that we all stood and watched, but after a while it became a matter of routine with a destroyer coming alongside, just to glide over, haul the bag of mail across and off it'd go.
The routine was very boring, so there was a lot of waiting and hanging around, but there was no action, no sort of continuous action. It was close up at action stations, actual air raids, but you saw the combat air patrols.
We had all the emergency arrangements there. I don't think I ever went to bed unprepared for trouble. I never completely undressed. I had a bag with my immediate valuables immediately to hand with my life jacket. All the cabin doors all had a panel at the bottom that you could kick out if you if you found that the door jammed shut. You know, when I think back of it now, I had no idea really what a dangerous thing it was being an engineer. I had a single cabin which would have been about 7 foot by 10 foot. There was a full-length settee at right angles to the bunk, because if the ship was rolling, you could fall out of your bunk, so you could sleep on the settee if it was necessary. I had a writing desk, a wardrobe. I had a wash basin with no taps. There was a bucket underneath the sink of the wash basin, and I would have a copper jug with cold water in it.
I can never remember eating any bread on board the Fort Wrangell that wasn't looking like a seed cake peppered with weevils or the dead bodies of weevils. But one got acclimatised to it. We were also infested by cockroaches, large cockroaches too.
The ship was fumigated in Colombo. I'm told they found over 200 dead rats, and we had a cat on board the ship who was pretty good at rats, but it was obviously overwhelmed by the numbers.
Pay was infrequent, not that we required any pay because we were at sea most of the time. I think at that time I was in the receipt of something like 1 shilling and 3pence a day, if I remember rightly. I think I got 2pence a day more when I became a trained operator signalman, so it was about 1 and 5, 1 and 6pence per day, per week, when we got it. Off watch, play games on the mess deck, like Monopoly, like hookers, like cards. Unless we're in port, of course. I mean, if we're in port or in harbour, we'd be swimming. A lot of the time over the side.
That was when I was on board the Menetheus, the amenity ship Menetheus, when she lay at Curie, a naval boy at Curie. There were no amenities out in the Pacific at all, nowhere to go. Most of the islands were taken by the Japanese anyway. If they did go ashore in any friendly island, it was more likely than not they'd catch VD, and it's a long way from home to get replacements out there, as you can imagine. Bearing in mind, in those days, there were no aeroplanes to transport people. Everything had to be done by sea. So these amenity ships were there to try and take the place of where troops would have been if they'd gone ashore, and give them the same type of amenity, if possible. So this ship was converted into being able to put a first-class show on, which was a 2-hour non-stop musical tropical review, which was absolutely excellent. We did, in fact, have Wren's quarters built on board, and this was for the Wrens to take part in the show. Real girls, you know, to be, instead of our chaps going around in hula-hula skirts and so forth, which they did, and lots of wolf whistles, as you can imagine. And then we had also our own facilities to make beer, brew our own beer on board. And we were the unique ship in the world to brew beer, if I may say. It's a floating brewery, and there never has been one like it since or before. Then there were the shops on board for the troops and the ratings, everybody who came on board to buy things for their mothers and their girlfriends or their families. Everything from, in those days, silk stockings up to watches. In fact, just like a liner.
The last fueling and victualling at sea that I can remember occurred around about August 1945, and at that time we received the message after we'd victualled the fleet again that a bomb had been dropped, a large bomb on one of the Japanese cities, which was Hiroshima, we later found out, and a second one some days later on Nagasaki. And then we heard that the war had ended, the Japanese had asked for peace, or the emperor decided they had had enough. And then the day came for the signing of the surrender on board the Missouri, and I think we were a distance of approximately half a mile away from the Missouri when the surrender was signed. Anyway, the Japanese signed, and it was not until after they signed that we were allowed ashore. And we went ashore actually in Yokohama, and we picked up something like 15 ex-British prisoners of war who were in prison camps located somewhere near Tokyo, and brought them quickly back to Sydney, Australia, for recuperation. And then we were victualled up very quickly again to take food supplies back to Japan, and we went back again to Tokyo, where we had the opportunity of going ashore and looking around Tokyo in more detail. We were taking supplies as quickly as we could because the Allied forces had established bases in all these places, occupation forces, and the areas themselves were particularly denuded of food. So it was a native population as well as the garrison populations that had been established there that required food very quickly. I think it took some time to settle down again to civilian life. Well, yes, I did. I found it difficult to settle down because I toyed with the idea of going back to Australia.
And I suppose really it was the fact that after the war, nothing was ever the same again. The ships, the Navy had changed. Certainly everywhere we visited, going out and coming back had changed.